Welcome to the Civil War Digital Digest. I'm Will. Well, our journeys have taken us back to suburban Chicago today, and we're at the home office of Mark Krausz, who's one of the partners of Agents Pelican and Campbell Military Goods. Today, we're going to continue the discussion about musket tools that were used during the Civil War. And Mark, today, let's talk about a couple of foreign weapons and some Confederate weapons. Let's get started. What are we looking at here?
So what we're looking at is two Enfield privates tool, and the British underwent something like 14 or 15 different designs from 1855 to 1862.
My goodness, how do you keep that straight? 14 different designs.
That's right.
Okay, well, we're going to have to boil it down. What are we looking at on the table?
So the ones that we have examples of right now is their first design. This is the pattern 1855 Enfield's privates tool. And this weapon has a wiper, it has an oiler that's internal that you can screw out and oil your weapon, and it also has a cone pick. At the very bottom of the tool is where you could unscrew and screw the cone for the weapon. Moving over to 1861, we have another design of the Enfield privates tool.
So what's on this 1861 tool?
So on this 1861 tool, again, we have the wiper, we have the oiler that's internal, we have a pick, and we also have the screwdriver. And at the very bottom of this tool is where we have the cone wrench for the rifle. Like also with the privates primary issue tools, we have a tompion that has a brass head with a cork body, and we also have the cone protector that has a leather top with a steel body, or iron body, I should say.
Okay, and that's fairly well known to people that comes with an Enfield. That's the private's kit. What's to the right there?
To our right, we have the Enfield Sergeant's tool, and this would be the Type 4 pattern. What we've done is we have the horizontal arms, we have a wiper, we have a screwdriver, we have an oiler, we have the ball puller at the bottom, and if you remove the ball puller, you can also then use the bottom as a cone wrench or a cone screwdriver. On the side, you'll see like an L-shaped protrusion, and that is where you would have the mainspring vise holder.
Okay, fantastic. Well, there's the Enfield. Let's go ahead and reset the table for the second most common imported weapon. We'll be right back. Well, okay, the most common foreign imported weapon is done, and we're on to the second most common, the Austrian Lorenz. Things look quite a bit different here than we've seen before, Mark. What am I looking at?
That's right. Namely, we have a jag that we did not have in the British firearms. So we have a jag, 3 different examples of original jags. In the middle is probably the most common, what probably would have been imported widely for the Civil War use. You have a wiper, a reproduction wiper that screws into this jag. And then the jag would then screw onto a male threaded end of the ramrod to wipe the barrel clean. The top jag actually omits the wiper thread hole, and I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe perhaps a German manual. It's described, but something lost to history to me. Moving over, we have the Y-shaped Austrian Lorenz combination tool. So similar to the British design, it's a Y shape, but then we have a cone wrench at the bottom. We also have a screwdriver arm, and then we also have a rounded end arm.
And what's that for?
I believe it's to insert into the end of the ramrod to then get leverage to use the ball puller, which is at the very bottom, to screw into that lead ball and remove it from the barrel.
Okay. Do we know about frequency of issue? I mean, the ball puller thus far has been 1 in 10, whether we saw it as part of the sergeant's tool in the Enfield or completely separate in all of our American examples. What do we know about this one?
I don't personally know offhand what the issuance rate is. I mean, I would assume that the combination, that the wrench, the Y-shaped wrench, would be issued 1 per man. The ball puller, it's arguable, probably 1 per 10 men, just like the U.S. method, but I'm not sure. It might be in a German manual.
It also might be something that the Americans are going to do with the Austrian equipment as they're used to doing with their own, no matter how many get sent over.
That's right. Or maybe the Germans Austrians did not send it over.
So further research needed, but these are the tools of the Austrian Lorenz. Well, okay, we're back, and we have one more foreign weapon to share with you today. Mark, this is the Potsdam. Why don't you talk to me about what's on the table in front of it?
So we have two groups of tools. Right now, on our left, we have a U.S.-produced combination tool for the Potsdam musket, and we also have a U.S.-produced wiper for the Potsdam muskets.
Well, let me start there. U.S. for the musket, what's different?
So the head of this combination tool is larger. It very much resembles the 1861 contract or the 1863 model combination tool. The difference is that the size of the head is what makes this for the Potsdam musket. The cone of the Potsdam was much wider than a U.S.-produced cone. Thereby, they needed to enlarge the head to accommodate the cone, and so it's significantly much larger than a combination tool for the U.S. rifle.
Okay, and the wiper, I'm not used to seeing threads out there. What's going on here?
So the ramrod for the Potsdam musket has a female end to accept threads, and so that wiper would screw onto the end of the ramrod to wipe the barrel.
Okay, great. Well, those you said are American-made. What are the other ones?
So both of these examples are Potsdam jag and wiper tool combinations. And so as you can see at the very bottom, you have a wiper that has been removed from the ball puller jag combination. And if you were to use it as a wiper, you would have to actually screw the wiper onto the jag and then screw that onto the ramrod. The difference between the top and the bottom is that the top one did not have a threaded end for some reason. My postulation would be that it was unfinished and just sent over to America as part of those early war weapons that there was not much control over.
So, but the American government could go ahead then and tap that and it would fit if they wanted to.
If they wanted to. This one wasn't done, so perhaps they just said, you know what, throw it in the bin and we'll worry about it later.
Well, that's a wonderful, cool, very rare example. Thanks for sharing that with us. Well, okay, a whole bunch of stuff has changed. We've changed the weapon again, and Mark has changed his uniform. You've gone gray. Tell me what the weapon I'm looking at is.
So what we have is a Virginia manufacturing musket that was altered to percussion for Civil War usage by Adams of Richmond, Virginia. And then looking at the tools, we have three original Confederate tools. What we have is a T-handle tool that's generally regarded as being from Richmond, and that was a Doug example. As you look over to the middle, we have a probable Confederate manufactured wiper, and just above that, we have a Confederate produced combination tool that resembles the U.S. model 1861 contract tool or the 1863 combination tool.
Now, if I'm trying to tell a difference between a Confederate and a U.S. model, obviously we can leave off any of them that have the U.S. stamps. There's got to be more to know here. What else am I looking for?
So with the wiper, you can notice that it's not as refined as the U.S. made wipers. And as you look up towards that combination tools, it's not as finely produced as the American-made tools of 1861, 1863. But the real telltale sign is the rivet. The smaller rivet is telltale sign for a Confederate manufactured combination tool.
Okay, and what's on the right of the table? They all look the same as the Doug Richmond wrench.
That's right. So these are two modern-day reproductions for the living historian to take into the field, or also as for a collector to be aware of that they are reproducing these tools.
Great. What do we know about Confederate issuance as far as we've talked about primary and secondary with the United States forces? Do we know anything about that in the Confederacy? Not
much is known by me personally. However, I would assume that with being so many ex-U.S. military officers from the 1840s, 50s, and early 1860s, they were probably issued at about the same rate. And those T-handle tools are dug widely in the Virginia Eastern Theater, so they were issued quite often.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for sharing this passion of yours with us and helping us to learn a little bit. You know, left by themselves, the musket tools are just pieces of metal. But when we combine them with the weapons and the larger context, they help us find more of a connection to what the American soldier, both North and South, went through as they served in the Civil War. We'll see you in a few weeks.